Carol, thank you so much for being here. My grandmother and my mother and my sisters all crocheted, just regular crochet. I unfortunately never learned how, but this certainly takes it to a new dimension. This is called Tapestry Crochet.
Right, Tapestry Crochet. I first learned about it when I was in the Peace Corps in the 70s. I was actually working with a weaving cooperative, so I didn't pay that much attention to the wonderful bags that the men made. But then when I returned to the United States, I bought some of the bags and people started looking at them and everyone thought they were woven. And I realized this is something that people don't do here. And I gradually, over the next 25, 30 years, got more interested, started crocheting, and I've written a couple of books. I have a web page. I give classes now because I think everyone would enjoy this. It's something I do to relax when I'm watching TV.
Sort of therapeutic, isn't it?
I did it on the plane coming here, and in fact it's a good icebreaker. People come up and talk to you and ask you about it, and it is very relaxing.
Well, let's take a look at exactly, in case people have never heard of Tapestry Crochet, you might explain these samples.
Right. Well, Tapestry Crochet is like regular crochet, except you're just using one stitch, a single crochet stitch, but you're using more than one yarn. And if you crochet very loosely, you get a nice loose kind of cloth, and you can see the carried yarns in the fabric itself.
It does look more like weaving, though. That
right,
one does.
It does. If you crochet tightly, you get a very stiff fabric. In fact, all four of these samples were crocheted following the same instructions. But this with a large hook and loose tension, this with a small hook and tight tension, and then when you do the single crochet stitch, usually you insert your hook under 2 loops. If you just insert under 1 loop, you get this look, which is what they do in Europe. And when working flat pieces, normally you turn it at the end of every row, and that's what this one is, but you get ridges. And what I've done,
right, and then right to left.
Right, and so what I've done is developed a way where I have the front side on one side, the back on the other. So again, as it's evolved, I began crocheting bags like the Guatemalan bags, but then I decided I wanted to do flat pieces.
Do your own. Now these are some of the bags that are from Guatemala.
Right. There's only a few places in the world where they do tapestry crochet, although now with our communications and even with people moving around, more people are doing tapestry crochet, but essentially it's done in Guatemala, the Mideast, West Africa, and Northern Europe. So I brought some samples from those places.
And this has more of a raised yarn look, doesn't it?
Well, depending how many threads you carry, normally I carry just 1 or 2. In this bag, they've carried 6 threads. And the more threads you carry, the higher the stitches, and also you get that ridged look. The interesting thing about Guatemala, when I was in the Peace Corps in the 70s, the men crocheted these, and they were part of their traditional outfit. Now many of the men have switched to Western clothing, but they'll still use their bags, and now that tourists like myself are buying pieces and they're being exported, new segments of the population are crocheting. Now you see women crocheting, and besides just these bags, they also make like hacky sacks and change purses.
Now this is a very different type here if we can compare the two of these.
The reason why I included this bag is done with a technique called looping, and I've thought a lot about where tapestry crochet came from. It was probably introduced by the Spaniards to Guatemala during the colonial period, but looping is a technique that's thousands of years old. But with looping, you have to pull all of your yarn through each loop each time.
Very time consuming.
Very time consuming. And I'm thinking that the loopers probably really appreciated the ease of crochet, where you just pull through a little loop and then you're ready for your next loop. Because these loop bags are still made in the same format. They're shoulder bags with a separate strap that is tied at one side, and they have different uses. But the interesting thing about looping is in West Africa, where the hats are so popular, they have looped hats there. And in Finland, where they also do tapestry crochet, they have looped gloves. So it seems like in every area, and in Israel, they have not necessarily looping, but they do embroidery and other types of skull caps.
Now you mentioned the Africa, and these are a few examples of hats that are made.
Well,
the
these are
Africans?
from West Africa, and whereas I just used the single crochet stitch, this one was done with a double crochet stitch. And there's also some words. You probably recognize the words in this hat, but this also has the words of Allah above the hat. Now, one thing about the uses is like for us, we use bags or hats for fashion statement or because we need to carry something. It's the same with these people, but a lot of times the bag, for instance, from Guatemala will tell what town you're from. The hat could commemorate an event. For instance, this commemorates an event. This one is more of a religious type hat. This one is more decorative. Again, you can tell where someone is from by the style. These two hats are actually from the same town, Fumban in West Africa.
Now, what about this, the way this is crocheted?
Well, everywhere where they do crochet, they have slight variations. And in Africa, besides carrying the yarns, they also carry a heavier fiber to give it some strength. And that's what this one, which has the ridge look, has these this additional fiber in it. Now, this is only yarn. And as far as what people use, they use cotton. This is acrylic. You can use wool. You can use just about
So much to pick from,
any
too.
fiber.
Now, these are some samples of things made in Europe?
Right, right. Now, in Europe, what you're holding there is from Switzerland. They use this technique, but they just pick up one loop. So they have this little line showing, and it's very popular for edgings on pillowcases or doilies like that. In Finland, traditionally they made gloves with the technique. Now they also make bags and beautiful sweaters with a combination of knitting and crocheting all in one.
Now, this is the book you've written, and several of your projects, lots of your projects are in there. And these are a couple of the ones that you made, and we're going to look at a few others too.
Well, the nice thing, as I said, you can crochet loosely, and you have a nice soft fabric.
It's very soft.
Or tightly, like this bag, and you have a very durable fabric. The other great thing about tapestry crochet, if you turn it to the other side, you don't have any threads being carried as you do with other techniques.
On either
side,
isn't it?
It's beautiful on both sides. So yeah, I'm really excited about tapestry crochet, as you can tell, and I'm trying. I was in the Peace Corps, and I guess part of me, wants the world to be happy. And I think if more people crocheted or had some hobby that relieved their stress, there would be happier people.
And Carol, we also want to show some of your earlier projects and then some of the new things you've been doing.
Well, sure. It was actually this Christmas stocking that encouraged me to try tapestry crochet. My daughter was approaching her first Christmas, and I needed a stocking for her, and I started thinking, maybe I could crochet one. And I think I've come quite a long way since that. After that, I started doing my own handbags, and then I decided I wanted to crochet flat tapestries, and that took a lot of experimentation. But eventually I came up with a method, and I started crocheting flat pieces like this, which are more, I guess, my art pieces, wall hangings. And more recently, I've decided to add beads to my work.
I noticed the little bowls have some beautiful beadwork.
Well, I started with just bead highlights in that bowl. In fact, this bowl, the blue and yellow, is in my more tapestry crochet book. And then I submitted some projects to some magazines because I thought, well, this will really help publicize. And one of the magazines said, well, we want something totally covered with beads, which hadn't occurred to me. And that's when I did that basket. And after that, I just went nuts with it.
And the little purse on the front, that also shows embellishments with the beads.
Yes, and both of these projects are in various magazines. This one is in Bead and Button, the basket, and the little purse, which was actually supposed to be a cell phone purse, but by the time I finished it, I think the cell phones had shrunken. So we call it a purse. And,
for whatever use.
And the instructions for that are actually in beadwork.
Okay. Well, thank you for showing this to us. It's almost, I could say, a lost art, but it's really one that's really being revised, and I think more and more people are getting interested in it.
And it's really helping crochet, too. Crochet is now really becoming more and more popular. You're seeing fashion models wearing crocheted pieces, and I'm just waiting for them to start wearing the hats and using the bags.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Cheryl.